Ladies and gents, the Enhancement Shaman. Traditionally not one of my favoured specs in the game. But in WoD Draenor, in the early alpha when we played Enhancement, I actually said it was pretty good, as it did dodge the slowdown bullets that has hit most of the melee classes in WoD Draenor. The Enhancement Shaman still has a flurry of activity, never stopping, never giving up, never relenting, always going on and on and on, and always giving you something to do. It was one of those specs where the old Windwalkers of Mr. Pandaria were certainly looking at with bated breath and envious eyes as they got slowed down to say, ooh, maybe that actually suits what I prefer. Maybe that's the way I want to go this time. And therefore the Enhancement Shaman has received a lot more attention from the player base than it has in the past couple of years, I would say. In the past couple of expansions, it's always been the bastard child of raiding. And Enhancement is like something, oh, we have an Enhancement Shaman. Like, it's a rarity. We have one. Oh, do you? Yes, we do. We have an Enhancement Shaman because we're special. Not to say there aren't plenty of amazing Enhancement Shamans out there. There are. And there are people who absolutely adore this spec. As much as it's one of those specs that because it got ignored for so long and was kind of this bastard child, that it picked up a very, very loyal player base and very loyal community around it. So with what's happening with it in WoD Draenor, the more I play it, as much as I favoured it in early WoD as I was adjusting myself to this slowdown, the more I play it, the more it still comes up with the same problems that I believe the spec suffers from in Mr. Pandaria. And I believe why people just turn away from the spec and go, ugh, I've just had enough. It just doesn't play right. And that is ultimately what the problem is with it. It just doesn't play right. And I feel like Blizz really missed the boat in WoD Draenor in trying to correct some of those issues. Firstly, procs. Procs. Early on in WoD Beta, the Enhancement Shaman was moved to very much a Lightning Bolt orientated focus, in which case Lightning Bolt was like 40% of your damage. It was pretty weird that everything else you pressed, your Storm Strike, your Lava Lash, your Shocks, all this kind of stuff, just ultimately was like the tickle before you actually went in for the big punch, which was just Lightning Bolt. And therefore, you were just sat around waiting for Maelstrom procs, and 3 was enough to cast a Lightning Bolt because, frankly, it was doing so much more damage than everything else. And as much as some people seem to like that, other people took the stance of, I don't want to be rooted. I can't afford, if Lightning Bolt is so crucial to my DPS, I can't actually afford to wait till 5. And that was the situation we were in. We can't afford to wait till 5, which means on a very regular basis, I'm going to have to root my character in place, even for a moment, while I cast off this Lightning Bolt, which is very anti-melee, isn't it? I mean, there isn't much more anti-melee you can get than forcibly rooting yourself just to make sure that you stick with the class's current theme. What is good is that that has been toned down considerably. Now it seems that Lightning Bolt often was actually coming around about 2nd or 3rd of my DPS resources, and that was actually very, very nice to see. And it made the other spells more worthwhile. There's nothing more annoying than playing Whack-A-Mole, which I believe the Enhancement Shaman really falls into the category of Whack-A-Mole, is that the character has these abilities. You either press them right or you don't. You start off correct and just go downhill from there. Is that if those spells are in fact pretty useless and feel really flimsy and pointless, despite the fact that they should be really good. So it's nice to see that that emphasis has been taken away and everything seems reasonably balanced as it stands right now. Procs. Proc. One of the key problems I actually have with Enhancement is Maelstrom Weapon itself. I believe it procs far too often, and that is something I think they missed out a little bit. What they did in the Elemental, which I've released the Elemental video, and I suggest you check it out as we talk about more the utility of the Shaman itself, is that they increased the time it takes you to generate a fulmination, which is a similar sort of thing to Maelstrom Weapon, and therefore the Earth Shock that you cast when it actually gets to its fulmination is really important, really powerful, and exciting. It's exciting because it has a build-up and it gets there. With Maelstrom Weapon, it actually procs so often that the proc itself is boring and kind of annoying. And I think that really weakens the value of what Maelstrom Weapon is supposed to do, which is call upon the elements to fire off a giant lightning bolt. It would be much nicer and I think much smoother gameplay if Maelstrom Weapon actually procced far less often and made that lightning bolt considerably more powerful, giving you a little bit of choice there and a little bit of thinking about when you want to cast it. That might have been a good solution, and the reason I say that is because of the addition of Lava Lash procs. Yes, Lava Lash procs. So not only do you have to monitor your Storm Strike, your normal Lava Lash, your Maelstrom Weapons, and your Shocks, and your Unleash. All these things, not as well as Totems, and any actual utility, of which the Shaman has tons and tons of, yeah, you've got all this stuff going on. You also have to mix in the fact that your Lava Lash can instantly reset on top of that, and then you end up again with these peaks and troughs of play. And these really take you out of the game. Is sometimes you have them regularly. You have so much to do that you're just trying to get rid of everything. And then suddenly you're down to this dead zone where there's nothing going on. Maelstrom Weapon just isn't proccing. All your spells are off cooldown. And then you're in this period where you pull yourself out of the game. You're like, ugh, I have nothing to do here. And that can last several seconds, and then it goes back into just having too much to do. And all the time you're up and down and up and down. And honestly, personally, I find it very frustrating, as much as some players really like it. I just cannot get behind it, as it keeps pulling me in and pulling me away, instead of having the smooth flow that we've talked about with many other specs. The ramp-up idea. Again, why Blizzard seems to have missed the boat a little bit, especially with the spell consolidation that's gone on in Warlords of Draenor. We still have this outrageously good AoE. And Enhancement does have outrageously good AoE. Very, very good AoE when you get it going. And it still revolves around flame shocking a target, lava lashing to then spread that flame shock, then you can start the Fire Nova spam. And that's when it really takes off and it ramps up and suddenly you're doing crazy amounts of AoE. I don't see why they didn't do things like time Magma Totem into spreading flame shock. As long as Searing Totem is still a single target DPS increase, it makes no sense to me to have this AoE totem that practically is kind of a pain in the ass. Every single spell in the Enhancement library has some kind of synergy for one reason or another, and therefore it would have made more sense to me if we're AoE, instead of having Flame Shock then Lava Lash, which can often lead to points where one of them is on cooldown, adds have just appeared which were unexpected for whatever reason, and our AoE is delayed considerably, and AoE is one of the primary things that Enhancement is surely balanced by. Because the AoE is so crazy. Surely got to play into the balancing effect, considering how powerful that AoE is. Magma Totem would have fixed all that. Drop a AoE time. Magma Totem spreads the Flame Shock around. Okay, Magma Totem Fire Nova. That makes a lot of sense to me. Things like that really play into it. We still have the issue where Ascendance, which I have to say, the graphical work of Ascendance mixed in with Feral Spirit, which then changes you into an Ascendant Wolfman's form. Oh, that is beautiful. So stunning. I'd never paid attention to it before, but my god, it's beautiful. Absolutely groundbreaking. Doesn't change the fact, though, that Ascendance for Enhancement is practically useless. Absolutely useless in terms of a DPS cooldown. It's totally pointless in many ways. And why they haven't decided to fix that. If you pop Ascendance in any other form, in Resto, in Elemental, it's a noticeable difference in gameplay. It's very cool, very exciting. An Enhancement, nothing. Fuck all. And I just cannot fathom why it's being left that way. Why is something so cool being left that way? But there you go. That is how it is going to be in Warlords of Draenor. It plays similar to MOP. It's got a little bit of adjustments, which is more procs, which is more buttons to press, I guess. But at least we have had the balancing so the rest of your spells don't feel like you're just waiting and padding out your time until the next Maelstrom proc, which I think was a very, very dangerous road to go down. Enhancement, guys. Enjoy. But I would point out that I would suggest you check out the Elemental video for my thoughts on the utility of the Shaman. It was one of the strongest aspects of the class in Warlords of Draenor. It's worth a listen. Alright, guys. Bye-bye.